Dave is a man in a detective show who thinks he's in a detective show, you know? I wanted him to feel like he had a third eye on himself.
Well, I trained for months leading up to a shooting. I had intentionally put on 15 pounds by the time we started shooting, a total of 20 pounds by the time we wrapped, of muscle. And so I was training with Jeanette, my trainer.
You need to get somebody quick before one of them kills again.
Fire isn't just an element. Fire is an organism. Fire watches.
I spoke to you back when you did Blackbird, and it was just such a phenomenal performance. And this is just the complete opposite. There is so much going on with Dave here. And at the very beginning, I went into this blind, not watching any trailers, not knowing anything about it. Watch those first episodes, and then when that twist is revealed in that second episode, like, how did I not see this coming? So as the episodes progress and we're learning more about who Dave is and kind of seeing into those elements, was it ever about you playing these things as more subtle in some places and more overt in others? Or did you always just kind of inhabit him as this flawed, pathological person?
No, I really did sweat and stress over how much to reveal at any one time. I think, I think it's fair to say that the character really blossoms at the end of the second episode. And up until that point, the performance is deliberately a little more muted, maybe, because I couldn't really lean into, or in fact, there were times where I leaned more into his oddness, but they didn't work in the edit of those first two episodes because you smell a rat, and that's no good. People will see it coming, but it's great when smart people such as yourself don't. That's a delight. That's a really great. That means we've struck the balance well, and it was hard for me as an actor to know where to pitch it at times. But once he turns around and snaps at Emmett in the second episode, from that point onwards, I'm keeping it pretty weird.
And you've done American accents in the past. There's a very distinct vocal performance here for Dave. Where did you find that voice? Was that in a deliberate to make him sound in a particular way?
I think I wanted him to sound like he was a kind of like, I said to Dennis very early on, I want him to sound like he thinks he's in Dave is a man in a detective show who thinks he's in a detective show, I wanted him to feel like he had a third eye on himself, and I almost wanted the voice to feel a bit affected. There's a lot about Dave that is affected because he's performing to himself. So there's a ton of things that I do in that show that are done because Dave's kind of watching himself all the time, and the voice is part of that. Really, I think it's about him wanting to seem, I don't have a particularly deep or gruff voice, and maybe Dave doesn't either, but I think he wants one. What I mean? I think he wants a deep, gruff voice.
You've done, like in Birds of Prey, there's obviously a lot of physicality, a lot of stunt work that's going on. You had to do a lot of DIY house stuff here and a lot of running. That's clearly you. How much of that was just like, are we really going to have to keep running over and over again? Or was that just something that you just enjoyed doing?
Well, I trained for months leading up to a shooting. I had intentionally put on 15 pounds by the time we started shooting, a total of 20 pounds by the time we wrapped, of muscle. And so I was training with Jeanette, my trainer. And so by then, it was great because in one of the running scenes, they were like, you got to slow down. You're outrunning the tractor with the camera on it. You're going too fast. I love that stuff. I really do thrive on tapping into a level of physicality with my characters. I really do thrive in that area.
this character, like Michelle's got so much that's going on, and it's not just the investigative stuff, which is fascinating to watch, and seeing her actually be the detective that's unraveling and putting this together, but all of the things with her mother, that is such an emotionally gut-wrenching plot element to this story. What do you find to be really more challenging between the procedural stuff and really that intense investigative stuff, and then that emotional familial part of it?
I definitely feel that for me and Michelle, going to those places and tapping into the emotional trauma of her childhood, that's definitely the more challenging moments. You know, you gotta allow your heart to break on camera, you know, and it means going to a place and accessing memories and things. And in Michelle, that's the thing she wants to do least, right? She doesn't want to be vulnerable. It terrifies her to allow people to see her sad or weak in any capacity. So, yeah, I mean, selfishly as an actor, I love those challenges, but definitely that whole storyline was the more challenging aspect of the character. That and the Stephen element and the way it kind of all blends in, because it affects the way she attaches to Stephen. The fact that she is an avoidant. The second he leaves his wife for her, she wants to leave him, because it now means this relationship could be real. When he was with his wife, it was safe. She could have her cake and eat it too. There was this distance because they couldn't really be together, right? So playing with all those dynamics, it's thrilling.
And working with Taron, and Michelle obviously knows who Dave is and is having to play the part of figuring this out and getting him and catching him in the act of all these things. What was it like working with Taron as a scene partner, knowing that he's got these layers to his performance as well? Was that something you prepped in advance, or did you just find that on camera?
I mean, I definitely prepped Michelle's internal life and how she approaches Dave, because initially she's very humble with Dave and feeds into his male ego and pretends as if she doesn't really know much about arson investigation, although we end up finding out slowly through Colonels that, yeah, she read all the files. She knows a lot about the potato chip arsonist, right? And that throws him. But initially she's trying to disarm him because she needs to use him. She needs to catch these two arsonists and get out of here so she can go back to her boss and say, see, I told you, can't hold me down. So I definitely played with the manipulative way that Michelle approaches Dave.
Awesome. Well, it is a absolutely sensational performance. You knocked it out of the park. I cannot wait for everybody to check this out. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for the love. That's very kind of you.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.